Good day, Chief reporting for CTT. I'm going to try to finish up the Gulf War today. I've got one story to tell. I don't know if anybody's ever seen the Clear and Present Danger movie, but there's that scene where the Special Forces are down in some South American country and one of the members of that squad puts their foot down and it gets this hollow sound. That happened to me. While we were still in that spot where the artillery lieutenant was shooting dogs, there was a greenhouse area south of us, and we were looting it like crazy because that's where the Iraqi forces had set up a camp, and I thought I was on solid ground, but it had like a little mount to it, and I stepped on it and all of a sudden I got the hollow sound. So I screamed out to Rodney, and Rodney, I said, "What am I standing on, Rodney?" Because I just stopped moving as soon as I heard that thump. And he went around the long way because this was a man-made. It was about a 10 to 12 foot tall bunker. And the sandbags were like that at the entrance, so you had to do like an S maneuver. So he said, "You're standing on top of the bunker." I came down to him. We poked our heads real quick to make sure nobody shot at us. It was dark out at the end and neither one of us had a flashlight with us. So I said, "We're not going in there," and Rodney said, "Okay." So that's probably it for about strange things that happened to me while I was in the war. I did collect some rocks while I was over there. I got a tray of rocks here. Most of them are pretty well sandblasted by the sand. I actually have one that looks like Pride Rock from, you guessed it. I got the little shelf, the little cliffside, I got the under cliffside, so I got the Lion King rock right here. I don't know what these rocks are and really never had them looked at. As far as I know, none of them are radioactive, no uranium or something like that. I did speak briefly about the propaganda things that I went looking for and forgot to show them. And like I said, I looked on the site, and out of the about 50 or so, I only got like 4 examples. Nothing really worthwhile showing. But I got to go home early. But before I went to home early, let's talk about our last base camp. The last base camp we were at was outside KKMC, which is King Khalid Military City, and they had set up a big shower tent for us. They took some of the previous showers that we had been going from site to site to site with, and put those underneath a tarp. And like I said, I read part of my journal last week, and I took a bath. I can't tell you what those baths look like, but I took several baths before I left that place. And then one day, like I wasn't even there a week, and I got called to battalion. And the battalion says, "You're going home." I said, "Excuse me?" They said, "Yeah, you and 3 others from the battalion are going home." So I got the other name. One other member was from my company, and I ran and got him. And they're like, "You got 10-15 minutes to get your bags and be back up here." Plus I had to get our deployment folders, and the first sergeant had those in one of his duffel bags, and I looked for him, couldn't find him. So I went to his tent, rifled through, pulled out mine and the other soldiers, and put all the others back. I didn't want the first sergeant to be mad at me when he got home. And we packed our bags, and what was really strange is that day, the bulk of the mail finally caught up to us. So I had all this food that my mother had just sent, so I had to give all that away. I got stuff all around me, and I keep looking side to side, and I don't know why. So we got over there, and we got shipped over to 1st Infantry Division headquarters, and we met there with a major, I think, was in charge of us to take us home. So we got on a bus and we went to the KKMC airfield, and there were some huge Quonset huts. Big old Quonset hut, the semicircular huts that they were using as billeting. So we got over there, and there were people sitting on the ground outside of them. Find out what that was, the purpose of that was for. So they said, "Grab a hut or grab a cot inside the hut and do what you want to do." They had movies and they had hot showers. So we got in there, the 4 of us kind of stayed together because we didn't know what else to do. We were the only 4 members from our battalion. And So I took a hot shower. I walked over to it, and it was the hottest shower I've taken in almost, I don't know how many days, since middle of January. And this is the middle of April, if I remember correctly. I looked through my journal. I did not write down what day I flew home. All I know was on a weekend. I have a piece of paper that tells me where I flew and what time I arrived and departed. So we spent the night in one of those. Of course, it was just as hot as sleeping in a tent, if not hotter, because there was no ventilation per se. And we woke up the next day and we found out why those soldiers were sitting outside. We had to vacate because the new wave of soldiers that get to go home had to occupy the billeting. So we spent the greater part of the day out in the hot sun, so much for me taking a hot shower. But if you didn't have desert boots, we got free desert boots that day because they wanted us to look good when we went home. They looked up and down our desert uniforms, because we were all dressed in desert uniforms, to make sure we looked good when we came home, like I said. And we were flying with a bunch of the 7th Corps people, so we had to go to Germany first. So while we're sitting out in the hot sun, the major came up to us and said, looked at the 4 of us from the 101st MI battalion, said, "We may not have seats for you guys, but don't worry, you're going home." So we're all like, well, we're this far in the process. Why all of a sudden now, all of a sudden we're being told we don't have seats? So we got seats. And like I said, we had to fly to Germany first, so I got to fly into Frankfurt, Germany. We landed like around midnight. And the first place I went to was the porcelain, because I hadn't sat on a porcelain in such a long time, and the family support groups had numerous items of food. They had tables of food in there. They unloaded everybody off the plane because they, excuse me, because they had to separate our luggage. They had to get all the 7th Corps people's stuff off and hopefully leave ours on. Nobody lost anything as far as I could tell. Plus, we've still got our M16s. We had to take our M16s home with us, so we, still got that strapped over your shoulder while we're walking through getting food, because you couldn't leave that on the plane. And so I no more than filled up a plate of food when they told us, yeah, you're going to be here for 2 or 3 hours. I got to a phone. Someone pointed out, "Oh, yes, sir," or "Yes, Sergeant, you can call home." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I said, my wife doesn't know I'm coming home, because this is before cell phones. So I got on the phone, and of course, due to the time difference, she was still awake. Like I said, we were there at midnight. So it was towards the evening where she was at, 6 hours time difference. And I told her who was coming home from the battalion so she could go to work the next day and tell the people, because she was in the same battalion as I was. And like I said, then we went over and filled up a plate of food. No more than got that sucker filled, and they said, "Okay, all you 1st Infantry guys, get on the plane." We weren't even on the ground an hour. That's how fast they unloaded the baggage from the 7th Corps personnel. We got on this plane. And it was a Delta flight, believe it or not, because I actually have the hats that they gave us. I got a nice Hawaiian hat, and I got a regular plain old white Delta hat with their wings on it, and I've had these in my war chest since then. So I got 2 free hats, because I think somebody left theirs behind, and there's like a hat in every seat when we first got on the plane, and someone left one of those. I think I got the Hawaiian hat first, and then someone left behind the white. Doesn't matter. And so we got on the plane, and there was about, gosh, I don't remember, 50 to 60 of us. And we had a full plane of, close to whatever they could carry back then, 200 to 300, because it was one of the big planes. And the stewardesses, they ran out of food. They were sad about that, because they didn't really refill the food at Frankfurt. And there was like a couple movies, and we'd already seen the movies flying out of Saudi Arabia to Germany, and they didn't want to re-show the movies. I don't know why, because this is back in the day when they had the main screen, and you had to look at the main screen. So everybody's scrambling around talking to the stewardesses, trying to hit on them. And of course the stewardesses are hitting on us because, "Oh, do you have something from the war that you can give me?" And one of the soldiers that went home with me was the soldier that I was going to be responsible for if I went to the ACE. So He comes up to me and he says, "Sergeant, you got an extra boonie cap?" And I go, "Why?" "Well, I want to give it to a stewardess." "Oh, so you want to take something from me and give it to a stewardess like it's from you?" "Yeah." I said, "No." And he walked away all disappointed. Guy drove me crazy. I don't know what happened to him. So we landed in Bangor, Maine again, and we landed, whatever, 6 o'clock in the morning, who knows, and we could look outside the windows and the concourse was just packed of people, because this is back in the day when people could come to the gates. So we're looking through the windows and there's all these people. They want to say hello, welcome home, welcome, you know, you came back safe and alive, and they said, "Nope, we're just getting fuel here at Bangor, Maine to get you guys back to home, and you can't go onto the concourse." So that upset those people, but it didn't upset us because we refueled, we got, and then we landed, I think, in Wichita, because the runway that was supposed to take care of all this deployment was still being extended outside of Ogden, which is on the east side of Fort Riley. So that runway still wasn't done. Yes, my cat's here in the distance because I put him in a room today. And so we land there, and then we got on buses. So while we were on the buses, we filled out all these forms, and they took our M16s because they actually brought on weapons racks where they were going to take them to a main armory, and then of course they would distribute them to the units as they got around to doing that. So we got rid of our weapons because we were going to walk in a hangar and they didn't want us to have weapons all over us and stuff like that. So we landed, and the major said, "Okay, we're going to wear our boonie hats." I was given orders to wear our Kevlars. He says, "We're going to wear our boonie hats. So I don't want anybody to look stupid." So guess who looked stupid? I looked over at that wonderful soldier that I was supposed to be responsible for, and he somehow got a hold of like a 10, 15 little American flags. He had them stuffed out of his collar, out of his pockets. And I walked over to him. I said, "What did the major just say?" "We're not supposed to look stupid." I said, "Okay, let's look at you and look at everybody else around here. Who else has about 15 small flags sticking everywhere out of their uniform?" "Yeah, just you. Remove most of them, please." So we walked into the hangar, and I actually got to sit on the end where there was still a couple seats from me, and I motioned over to my wife because she was in the grandstand, or the bleachers, whatever you want to call them, and she's like, you know, "No, this is your ceremony," because they gave us a brief welcome home and stuff like that. And I'm like motioning to her. She finally came over and sat next to me, and I held her hand and all that wonderful stuff. So I'm home. So after everybody else got home, Fort one radio station put out this lovely, you know, coupon book. I never used a single one of them, so I don't know why I still got it. Later on, I finally got hold of this, the Desert Jayhawk. Jayhawk is the 7th Corps. So it's just basically a magazine about each of the units that comprise 7th Corps, and then day-by-day operations. Not really, you know, not just something that they gave, and I got several copies of it, as you hear. And of course I bought the Army Times special back when it was nice and thick. Now they're so skinny it's unreal. And this is a welcome home issue. And then of course I had to travel around the country. I had to go up to Colorado. I had to go get all the yellow ribbons. I think this one was from my mom, so I had to take that off her front door. This one's from my wife. It wasn't much. She wrote Charlie Company on one side and then my name's on the other. I think it was on like a collective tree somewhere near the battalion. I really don't know. And then my neighbor, she had one, so I had to go take hers out of her yard and stuff like that. So I'm home, and of course loud bangs were bothering me because my wife dropped some dishes one time and I hit the pavement, and she's like, "I didn't mean to do that." I said, "Don't worry." I said, "This will wear off." So that was probably about the extent of my PTSD. But just adjusting home to home life and home cooking, because as I said last week, I read my journal. We actually ran out of T-RATs. We almost ran out of MREs. For the rumors that we were told, MREs were no longer being used up at basic training because all that stuff was coming over to us. And like I said, we were getting almost expired, almost the end of the shelf life of some of these boxes, because we were getting boxes from everybody was pulling them out of their armories. All the National Guard were getting rid of their stock because the government needed to buy them up. After our chow hall ran out of T-Rats, we started getting the Chef Boyardee meals, the Hormel meals, so we were getting those small cans of food for a while. That was our hot meals. And one story with the MREs, we got a box of MREs. I don't know what the shelf life of it was, but it wasn't that bad. But they're packed in there pretty tight. Anybody knows, been in the military. So somebody reached in to grab a meal, and one of the bags, MREs next to it, went woof, filled up. And we're all like looking at one another, and we're like, nobody open that one or eat it because something's bad in there. So that one went straight into the fire. Nobody dove in to get the goodies. They were like, yeah, there's something wrong with that one. So that's basically it, tying up the Gulf War, I hope. If I come up with some other stories, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I didn't do much. Like I said, I drove the war. I did not see a dead body, and if I did see a dead enemy body, it was burnt beyond recognition. So I'm thankful there that I did not see any dead bodies. However, probably next week or the following week, I will talk about a deceased U.S. soldier. I think I mentioned that a couple months ago. So this is Chief signing out. Remember, freedom's not free. Say some prayers for what's going on in Afghanistan right now. Personally, as an ex-soldier or a former soldier, I am mad at the current administration for what they did. So like I said, freedom is not free. Hug a vet, thank a vet, go out of your way, because right now we don't look all that good to the world. Chief out.